Isabella Cartwright had always prided herself on having a life that many people would envy. At 39, she was a successful lawyer, known for her sharp intellect and a tenacious drive that had propelled her to the top of her field. Today, however, the celebrations of her 42nd birthday felt eerily hollow. Nathan, her husband of 14 years, was acting differently. It wasn't the grand gestures that unsettled her. It was the little things, the things that she had learned to read over time. The house was decorated in their usual manner for special occasions, and Nathan had organized a special dinner as always. A bottle of her favorite wine, a deep red, was chilling in the corner. But as Nathan poured them both a glass, she noticed something. The wine, usually so familiar, had an odd, almost chemical scent. It was faint but unmistakable. Isabella's mind raced as she watched Nathan, his face serene, but his movements slightly too deliberate. They shared a warm, yet strained smile as they clinked their glasses. But as she took a sip, the strange smell lingered in her nostrils, and she felt a subtle unease spread through her chest. She shook it off, trying to push the thought away. After all, Nathan had been good to her, attentive, loving. He was her partner, her companion. But in the quiet moments, when she could hear only the rhythm of their breathing, she had noticed things, slight, almost imperceptible changes. He was withdrawn lately, emotionally distant. His touch felt different, as if he was holding back. She kept her thoughts to herself, not wanting to disturb the evening. But then she caught a glimpse of his watch, the one she had bought him for their 10th anniversary. It was gone. Her hand hovered over her glass. Something wasn't right. A sense of creeping doubt began to seep in, and she knew that tonight, this birthday, wasn't going to end like she had imagined. The dinner had barely started when Isabella's suspicion grew to unease. Nathan seemed to be the picture of calmness, but it was in his eyes, flickers of avoidance whenever she looked at him too long. She had never known him to act this way. A wave of apprehension washed over her as she reached for her glass of wine, still too hesitant to touch the food. With a small, barely noticeable movement, Isabella swapped her glass with Nathan's. She took a deep breath, steadying herself for whatever she felt was about to happen. The glass, she reasoned, had to be the source of her discomfort. And as soon as she drank it, she felt her head begin to spin, slowly, imperceptibly at first. She set the glass down, the world around her tilting. It was a moment of clarity as she saw Nathan slump over at the table, his head lolling forward in an alarming way. His glass slipped from his hand and crashed to the floor. Panic surged in her chest. Her breath quickened as she rushed to his side. "Nathan!" Her voice shook, an edge of fear creeping into her tone. Nathan's eyes fluttered, barely open, and a grimace of confusion crossed his face. He attempted to speak, but nothing came out. Her heart pounded in her chest as she grabbed her phone and called 911. The minutes that followed felt like hours. Nathan was whisked away in an ambulance, leaving Isabella standing in the middle of the dining room, her thoughts a whirlwind. What was happening? She could barely breathe as the reality of the situation sank in. Her hands shook as she ran through the events in her head. The wine. It had to be the wine. She could remember its taste now, its strange chemical edge that clung to her senses. Her mind was still racing as the paramedics arrived, loading Nathan into the ambulance. She tried to keep her composure, but she could feel a sense of betrayal settling in. Her stomach turned. The drive to the hospital felt like an eternity. By the time they arrived, Isabella was desperate to make sense of the situation. What had happened to Nathan? She needed answers. And when the doctors explained that Nathan had been poisoned, intentionally, her world came crashing down. She didn't know who had done it. She didn't know how it had happened. But she did know one thing. Her marriage was built on lies, and she had been blind to it for far too long. The next morning, Isabella was wide awake, still in shock. She couldn't help but replay the events in her mind over and over again. The wine, the oddness of Nathan's behavior, his collapse. She had to confront him. She had to know the truth. When she walked into the hospital room, Nathan was awake, groggy, and groaning in pain. He looked up at her, his expression soft, like he didn't quite understand why she was there. Isabella, his voice was weak, but the words felt hollow. I'm sorry. Sorry. Isabella's voice was tight, with disbelief. You've got to be kidding me. What's going on, Nathan? I don't know what happened, he said quickly, reaching out to take her hand. I was under stress, or maybe something I ate. No, Nathan! Isabella cut him off, her voice sharp. Don't try to excuse this. What's going on? Why did you collapse last night? He hesitated, his face crumpling with an unfamiliar vulnerability before he looked away. It's just stress, Izzy, he muttered. I've been having a rough time. Isabella clenched her fists at her sides, frustration bubbling to the surface. She could see right through him now. You're lying, Nathan. You've been lying to me. I know it. Nathan's eyes widened, but he said nothing. The silence between them was deafening. Isabella spent the next few hours gathering her thoughts. She couldn't shake the feeling that something more was at play here. Her mind wandered, retracing the strange moments that had passed between them recently, his emotional distance, his avoidance, his strange behavior. It wasn't just the wine. It was everything. Just as she was about to leave, a knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Standing in the doorway was a close friend of Nathan's, someone Isabella had known for years. His face was tight, his expression grim. Isabella, he said softly, stepping into the room. I've got something to tell you. He hesitated, his eyes flickering to Nathan, who was now looking pale and uncomfortable in the hospital bed. I saw Nathan with another woman a few days ago, just before your birthday. Isabella froze. The words hit her like a blow to the chest. I'm sorry, he added, stepping back, but you deserve to know the truth. Her world tilted, her mind struggling to comprehend what she had just heard. Betrayal. It was real. It was happening. Isabella began, but the words failed her. She turned her back to Nathan, her heart hammering in her chest. This wasn't just an affair. This was something much worse. The door slammed shut behind her as Isabella walked out of the hospital room, the shock settling in. The pieces were falling into place. Nathan had been planning this. He wasn't just cheating on her. He was planning to leave her, to take everything. As she stood at the door, she whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning." Isabella stood in her kitchen, the faint hum of the refrigerator the only sound breaking the silence. It had been 2 days since Nathan's collapse, and in those 2 days, everything she thought she knew about her life had crumbled into dust. She had always considered herself a woman of reason, one who could see through lies and deceit, but now she found herself tangled in a web of betrayal that she had never anticipated. She sat down at the kitchen table, a stack of papers spread before her. One by one, she flipped through them, emails, bank statements, anything that could help her understand what Nathan had been doing behind her back. Her fingers trembled slightly as she picked up the phone and dialed Emily's number. "Hey, it's me," Isabella said when Emily picked up. "I need your help. I don't know who else to trust." Emily's voice was steady, comforting. "You've got me, Izzy. Whatever you need." "I'm going to find the truth," Isabella replied, her tone firm. "I'm not leaving any stone unturned." Her mind raced as she made a plan. She couldn't confront Nathan directly yet, not with what little she had. No, she needed more evidence, more proof. She knew she couldn't rely on Nathan's words anymore. It was time to call in someone who could dig deeper. She contacted Will Sanders, a private investigator she'd worked with a few years back on a case. Will was discreet, thorough, and, most importantly, trustworthy. After a few tense minutes of explaining her situation, Will agreed to meet her the next day. The day felt endless. Isabella spent it sifting through more documents, her anger simmering beneath the surface. Each discovery fueled her determination, but the weight of the betrayal was unbearable. She tried to focus on the task at hand, but the image of Nathan, his calm demeanor as he lied to her face, kept haunting her thoughts. By the time evening came, Isabella had set her plan in motion. She had no more time for questions or doubt. The truth was out there, and she was going to find it. The next morning, Isabella met with Will at a local coffee shop. He was waiting for her at a table in the back, a folder in front of him. The dim lighting cast shadows over his face, but Isabella could see the concern in his eyes. "Got what you asked for," Will said, pushing the folder toward her. "It's not pretty." Isabella opened the folder, scanning the documents quickly. Photos, bank transactions, more than she had hoped for. But it was the last page that made her stomach drop. It was a printout from an insurance policy, one that listed Adriana as the primary beneficiary. "Does Nathan know about this?" she asked, her voice shaking slightly. Will sighed. "Not only does he know, but it looks like he's been making plans to cash in on it. He's been paying into this policy for years, and I'm afraid it's more than just a backup plan. He's been talking to his financial advisor about liquidating assets, all in preparation for something." Isabella felt a wave of nausea, but she forced herself to keep it together. "I need you to find out everything. Who else is involved? How far this goes? I'm going to expose him." Will nodded. "We'll get to the bottom of it, Izzy. Don't worry." She wasn't sure whether she was worried about Nathan's betrayal or about the man she had loved for so long being someone she no longer recognized. But she couldn't let herself dwell on it. The truth was out there, and she was going to uncover it piece by piece. A few days later, Isabella had gathered all the evidence she needed. She knew it was time to confront Nathan. She wasn't going to let him hide behind lies anymore. The confrontation was inevitable, and it had to happen now. Isabella set the meeting up under the guise of discussing their future. She knew that Nathan wouldn't suspect what she had planned, and she wanted to catch him off guard. She felt the surge of anger rise in her chest as she prepared herself to face him. When Nathan walked into the room, his usual charming smile quickly faded as he noticed the folder Isabella had placed on the table between them. He raised an eyebrow. "Isabella, what's this?" he asked, his voice carefully neutral. Isabella didn't answer immediately. Instead, she slid the folder toward him, watching his face carefully as he flipped it open. The color drained from his face when he saw the insurance policy with Adriana's name on it. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice cutting through the silence. "Explain it." Nathan closed the folder, his lips pressing into a thin line. He tried to hide his discomfort, but Isabella could see through his facade. "It's nothing," he said, his voice low and defensive. "Just something I've been working on for the future." "Stop lying to me," Isabella snapped. "I know what you're planning. I know about the affair with Adriana, the money transfers, the policies. You've been planning to leave me, haven't you?" Nathan's jaw clenched. He hesitated for a moment before he spoke, his words calm, cold revelation. "I was planning to leave you, yes. But it's not just about her, Izzy. It's about securing my future. Your future, too, in a way." Isabella's heart pounded in her chest as the reality of his words sunk in. "You were going to kill me for the insurance money." Nathan didn't deny it. Instead, he just looked at her, his eyes filled with a strange, empty calmness. "I didn't want it to come to this," he said, "but I need it out. I'm done with this marriage." The words hit Isabella like a punch to the stomach. The man she had loved, the man who had promised to care for her, had been plotting her downfall all along. The next few days were a blur of activity. Isabella gathered everything she had, documents, photos, evidence, and began planning her next move. She couldn't just let Nathan get away with this. She would not be a victim in her own life. Isabella knew that she couldn't take this on alone. She enlisted Emily's help to start laying the groundwork for a legal battle. She needed to be strategic. Nathan wasn't going to go down without a fight, and she needed to be ready for whatever came next. Then, one afternoon, as Isabella was sifting through the last of Nathan's files, she received an anonymous letter. The envelope was plain, with no return address. Inside, she found a single sheet of paper with a simple message. Nathan's been hiding something bigger. I know who can help. The letter was the breakthrough she needed. The final piece of the puzzle. The witness mentioned in the letter was someone from Nathan's past, a former business partner who had been wronged by him in a way that mirrored what Isabella was going through. With this new information in her hands, Isabella knew it was time to make her move. The stakes were higher than ever, but she was ready. Now I take control, Isabella whispered to herself, the weight of her decision settling in. And Nathan won't know what hit him. Isabella stood in front of the mirror, her reflection staring back at her, but it wasn't the woman she once knew. She wasn't the naive wife, the trusting partner. She wasn't even the woman who'd been betrayed. No, today she was something else entirely. Today, she was a woman who had taken control. Her hands trembled ever so slightly as she adjusted her blouse, a small reminder of the fury and disgust that boiled beneath the surface. The evidence was all in front of her: Nathan's affair, his financial schemes, his betrayal of their life together. Everything she had feared, everything she had suspected had come to light. And now, she had to decide what to do next. For weeks, she had been in turmoil, unsure of whether to confront Nathan with the evidence she'd gathered or to let it all fall apart on its own. But no more. She wasn't going to be passive in her own story. She would be the one writing the next chapters, not Nathan. Her future, her dignity, everything depended on the choices she made now. Nathan showed up at their house the following evening. The doorbell rang, and Isabella felt a chill run down her spine. She was ready. It was now or never. She had all the proof, all the ammunition she needed to destroy the man who had promised to love her forever. "Isabella!" Nathan's voice called from the other side of the door, his tone overly sweet, as if nothing had changed. "Can we talk?" She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she opened the door and let him walk in. He looked the same, well-groomed, confident, the man she once trusted completely. But to her, he was a stranger now. "Have a seat," Isabella said, her voice controlled but with an edge. She watched him closely as he sank into the chair, waiting for her to speak. Nathan looked around, a nervous energy in his movements. "I know things have been hard between us," he began, his voice laced with false sincerity. "But I want to make things right. I love you, Izzy. I always have." Isabella's stomach churned. She had heard this before, but today it meant nothing. "You love me," she repeated, her voice colder than she intended. "You love me, yet you've been lying to my face, having an affair behind my back, manipulating me for your own benefit. You've been planning to take everything from me, haven't you?" Nathan's expression faltered for just a moment. Then he quickly recovered. He leaned forward, his eyes wide. "Izzy, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for things to get this far. I was under so much pressure, and Adriana, she understood me in ways you didn't. I've made a terrible mistake, but it doesn't change how I feel about you." Isabella wanted to vomit. He was still trying to manipulate her, trying to twist the truth to make himself the victim. "You're right about one thing," she said, her voice sharp. "You've made a mistake, but it's not the one you think." She slid the folder across the table to him, watching as he slowly opened it. His face turned pale as he saw the documents inside, the insurance policy, the money transfers, the photos of him with Adriana. Nathan didn't say a word. He just stared at the evidence in front of him, the weight of it pressing down on him. "Tell me, Nathan," Isabella said, her voice steady, but her heart pounding in her chest. "How long has this been going on? And don't lie to me. I know everything." "I didn't want it to go this far," he muttered, his voice strained. "I was under so much stress. The business, Adriana, everything just spiraled. But I never meant to hurt you, Izzy." Isabella stood up, her movements quick and decisive. "You never meant to hurt me," she repeated. "You planned to kill me, Nathan. You planned to take my life for insurance money, and now you're telling me it's all because of stress." Nathan's face contorted with frustration. I don't know what you want from me, Isabella. I'm sorry. Please, just let me fix this. But Isabella wasn't interested in his apologies anymore. She had no time for them. She had learned the truth. And the truth was that Nathan was beyond redemption. She was done. The next day, Isabella sat across from Adriana in a nondescript cafe. She had already prepared herself for the confrontation. But seeing the woman who had helped destroy her life brought a cold fury rising in her chest. Adriana sat there, the same smug smile on her face, as if nothing had changed. I'm not here to listen to your excuses, Isabella began, her voice calm, but the anger simmered just below the surface. You and Nathan have been playing a game, and it's time for it to end. Adriana raised an eyebrow, her lips curling into a sly smile. I don't know what you're talking about, Isabella. Nathan and I have been through a lot, but we're happy. He's just been stressed, that's all. You're blowing everything out of proportion. Isabella leaned in, her gaze unwavering. You really think I'm stupid, don't you? I know about the insurance fraud, Adriana. I know you were never meant to be Nathan's future. You were just a pawn in his game. Adriana's expression faltered, her arrogance giving way to something closer to panic. That's not. Adriana, Isabella interrupted, her voice like ice. You're just as guilty as he is. You were never meant to be anything more than a tool. Nathan has been using you, and now you're here, still trying to manipulate everyone around you. Adriana's face went pale, and her carefully constructed mask began to crack. For the first time, Isabella saw the truth behind the facade, the desperation, the fear. I was using him, yes, Adriana whispered, her voice barely audible. But he promised me everything. He promised me a future, and now I don't know what to do. Isabella couldn't help but feel a cold satisfaction as she saw Adriana's breakdown. She had exposed her, broken through the lies. But even as she felt empowered by the confrontation, she couldn't shake the chill of realization. These people had no power over her anymore, but they still had control over so much. Isabella wasn't going to stop here. She had everything she needed, the evidence, the allies, and the strength to fight back. She immediately called Emily and Will to help her move forward. It was time to take control, to fight for her future. She wasn't going to be a passive victim. She was going to take back everything Nathan had tried to steal from her. She wasn't just fighting for her life anymore. She was fighting for her dignity, her power, and her future. She filed for divorce the next day, preparing for the long legal battle that would follow. The war was just beginning, and she was ready for it. As Isabella made her final preparations, she received an anonymous phone call. The voice on the other end was calm, but the message it carried was anything but. You don't know the half of what Nathan has been involved in. I have the information you need. This could ruin him for good. Isabella's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? I'm telling you this because it's time Nathan paid for what he's done. He's involved in something much bigger than just the affair. Trust me, you have the power now. But be careful, because once this comes out, there's no going back. The line went dead, leaving Isabella with more questions than answers. But now, with the final piece of the puzzle falling into place, she knew it was time to strike. She was ready to tear down the man who had tried to destroy her. But as she thought about the cost, she couldn't help but wonder just how much she would have to sacrifice to make him pay. With this new information in my hands, I can finally destroy Nathan, she whispered to herself. But as I get closer to the truth, I wonder, what will it cost me?